Let me sit down.
Yep, yeah. Sure.
Okay, so probably around the age of 13, I started off in track and field. I started off doing the jumps, and as I got a bit too heavy for that, I ended up doing sprinting. I was a pretty good national level sprinter. I ran a 10:49 100 metres. Came second at a national championships with that once as a junior. But a big part of my training was actually strength training, and I just found I was enjoying that so much more. So yeah, it was quite a natural progression into powerlifting, really. I didn't really know that powerlifting was a sport, but as part of my training, I actually deadlifted 300 kilos. And yeah, so I was down at Salford University. I don't know if any of you know Jim Blanchflower, but he lectures there, and he saw me in the gym because I was training at the Salford Uni gym, and recommended that I actually enter a powerlifting competition, which I had no idea about whatsoever, but did my first one and just fell in love with it straight away. Yeah, I entered my first competition. It was Northwest Champs up in Cone. I totaled 640 there in the 82.5 kilo category raw, and then quickly ended up in the equipped powerlifting. I don't know if any of you lift equipped, but it's yeah, quite a different ball game. But back then there wasn't any international classic championships at all, so if you wanted to progress in the sport, you really had to go into equipped. I didn't particularly enjoy doing it, to be honest. I set a world record actually in the deadlift, I think after 2 years of lifting at the European Championships. Had the British record in the juniors and the opens in the 83 kilo category for total. And from there onwards, they started introducing the classic championships then, so I got rid of all the equipment and moved up into the 93 kilo category. Probably didn't actually have as much success there as I did in the equipment, to be honest. Because I think the sport seemed to grow quite a lot more once people had this option of being able to lift unequipped. Yeah, that's about it for what I did in the IPF. Then I had a slight break and came back in the GPC and the BPU then. That's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I won the GPC British last year, and I've not done one in the BPU yet. In fact, I was supposed to be doing one in September, but that's not going to happen now. The last one I did was the WPC Europeans, which was a bit of a frustrating one, because I totaled 950 there with just my opening deadlift, and then took a big jump for a world record deadlift and ripped my bicep off. But that would have given me a pretty big total, so I was really frustrated not to get that. So I was after some like all-time cross-federation records there. So yeah. I'd say my experience in both the IPF and the WPC was very, very similar. It's just as formal wherever you go, to be honest. Yeah, I wouldn't know what to say was different there really, because I'm always just focusing on my own lifting anyway. And I know these other federations do get some stick for not being as strict as the IPF, but that really wasn't my experience there at all. So I had a couple of lifters I was coaching there, and I was actually calling them up on the squats, and there was still like just 2-to-1 passes, and I'm calling depth like it would have been in the IPF as well. So yeah, I think that's changing a bit. Right, has everyone brought the gym equipment?
It's a good start.
Okay, that's who wants to squat?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone straight away, okay. Yeah. Okie doke. So this is Emily. I've brought her today obviously because I can't do any demonstration myself at the moment, and she's probably the perfect example of the techniques that I like to teach for powerlifting. So yeah, in terms of warm-up, we'll just do a couple of sets with the empty bar first, and then I like to take quite small increments up to the top weight. I think you need something like 8 or 9 sets before your CNS is properly firing. So Emily will do 40, 60, 80, 115, and we'll take it from there. Good. So what I'm looking for here is, ideally I want you to be as upright as possible throughout the squat movement. Especially if you're a raw lifter. I really feel like it needs to be a quad dominant movement. So a lot of people give the cue to sit back, whereas I think more about pulling your hips downwards while pushing your chest upwards. So it's almost like you're trying to elongate yourself into the hole. So trying to stay as tall as possible. And we'll do as much warming up as possible on the lighter weights, and then pretty much just move up swiftly in singles from then onwards. So we're going to do 1 rep on this. So we've got a fairly neutral stance there, toes pointed outwards, and then straight down. Good. So now, does anyone squat with the toes pointed forwards?
Me.
Yeah. Why?
I've got a very narrow stance.
Right.
I feel like I might be slightly outwards.
Yeah.
But I haven't paid that much attention to it.
Okay, just stand up a sec. If you just come a bit closer. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Now turn your feet inwards. Even more. Let's just really exaggerate it so they're turned in. Contract your glutes as hard as you can there.
I feel it right on my knees.
Right. Now turn your toes outwards. Contract your glutes as hard as you can there again. Much stronger. Yeah. You want to use that when you squat, basically.
Do you feel like, because I feel like I might be angled outwards when I'm on a narrow squat.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the narrow squat might limit how much you can activate?
No, not really, because you can, as long as your toes are pointed out, you can open your legs up a bit more as well. Okay. In fact, I'd feel the wider you go, it's probably even harder to actually get that glute activation.
Okay, so
yeah.
It's just all about, how far would you say?
For me, well, you don't look too dissimilar to me, so I'd probably go about there.
I feel like that's where I might be.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be pointed inwards. Because the more internally rotated you are, the less your glutes are working then. But for me, the simple test is, I can't contract my glutes as hard there as I can with them turned outwards. Yeah, when I squat low bar, I'm almost thinking like I'm doing a front squat, just with the bar halfway down my back. Because it's just the most important thing for me with my leverage is to be able to keep my chest up throughout the entire movement. As soon as that deviates at all, I'm just getting stapled to the floor. So toes pointed out, and just going to pull yourself straight down. Perfect. Good. Any questions?
Yeah, I noticed somebody's wearing the belt for all of even the warm-ups.
Yes. Okay, so we do separate belted and beltless sessions. It does change your technique if you have the belt on, so I really don't agree with leaving it off until the heavier weights, because then you find you've got to your heavier weights and suddenly you're doing something different then. So yeah, so warm up as if you're practicing for the top weight, which means wearing all the same equipment you were wearing the top weight. Yeah.
So with the unbelted sessions,
Yeah.
how heavy would you go then, sort of? because I wouldn't have confidence at all.
Okay, well, what would you have confidence going up to, unbelted?
Unbelted,
Yeah.
possibly just up to about 70% of movement,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. No more. And I don't know what
I mean,
I've never thought about it.
what I do with this is I will use a different squat variation that actually forces me to go lighter anyway. So like with Emily, we do high bar pause squats without the belt. So that straight away reduces the load and just gradually build it up over time. I wouldn't jump from 70% straight up to 80%, but you know, just push it on a little bit and do a lot of sub-maximal volume as well. Also, it's not really a safety issue with the belt. It does make the lift easier. So in terms of confidence as well, I'd like my warm-ups to feel as easy as possible. Because then I'm going to be confident to move on a bit further once I do have the belt on. So if I can make, you know, the 60, 100, 140 feel really easy, I'm feeling good about the session then. Okay. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your grip on the bar and you're going to keep that there all the way through the setup now. Because once you've let go of that, basically everything you do before you put your hands on the bar counts for nothing in your setup. So she's going to put her feet up on the bench, lift her hips up as high as she can, and make sure she's getting as much of her weight as possible onto her traps. She's going to shuffle her feet back a bit, keep driving her hips up higher and higher. So this is kind of painful, to be honest. You try and develop an arch and it just takes brute force to do it. So while we're doing this, we're pushing against the bar to push your shoulders back as far as you can. And you're going to try and maintain that tension now while you slowly lower yourself down to the floor, one leg at a time. So from there, she's going to then lift her arse up as high as she can. So all the weight now is on her heels. You don't actually want to be resting on the bench at any point. So from there, she's just going to lower herself down until she just makes the slightest contact with the bench. So she's not actually resting on the bench there. All the weight's still on her feet, and she's just hovering herself so she's just in contact with it. And got a pretty good arch there. So unrack it. Okay, the next step then is you want to, instead of being out like this, you're going to engage your lats to pull your elbows in a bit. Maintain that tension in your lats all the way down to your chest. And then fire it up. Good. Just do a couple more reps. If you do this right with your lats, you should feel like you're actually getting some resistance as you pull the bar down, which springs it up off your chest. Right. Should we go through that again? Okay. So this first bit is about locking your upper body into place. So she's getting all the weight up onto her traps first. And she's going to push against the bar to push her shoulders back underneath her. Maintain that pressure as you lower down. You can't let that go at this point. Because once it's gone, you have to start again pretty much. So she's still actually pushing up against the bar to push herself into position. Feet are back as far as they can, and she's just hovering herself just on top of the bench. Pull her lats in to create some tension, and then pull the bar straight down from there, and then up. Good. Good. You'll probably notice that as the sets go on, her arch will start to get a little bit higher and higher.
Is that just through warming up?
Pretty much, yeah. It just takes a lot of force to make your back bend into that position, to be honest, and yeah, it's quite reluctant to do it.
I've seen like some of your videos and there's not, because you do feet up bench quite a bit.
Yeah.
Not much difference between.
No, I've had to stop arching for a while because I had a lot of internal rotation issues in my shoulders. So if you think about, if you're quite flat, you're pushing in that direction.
Yeah.
If you're arched, you're actually pushing more in that direction. And because I've had some issues with my shoulders, I couldn't actually push in that direction pain-free, so I've had to let go on it a little bit. I will be bringing it back as quick as I can, but yeah. Same again, up as high as you can. So I'm always aiming to try and get my hips above the bar in this position. And you can always keep shuffling your feet back and driving a bit higher. The hard part is maintaining that while putting your feet down on the floor. You can see that's looking higher already now. And then you're never going to quite bring the bar down to the very highest point of the arch, because that'll be somewhere on the stomach and you just can't drive from there.
Yeah, too much strain on the shoulder.
Yeah. But I find if you just turn your elbows in with your lats, it should come down naturally to the right place then. Okay, so let's do 50. Six, push up against the bar. And keep that tension in your back all the way down. Keep the weight on your traps. Just gently lower yourself down. There you go. Very good. Do a set of 10 stiff leg deadlifts. It's basically all the way down, legs slightly unlocked. And if you have to, let yourself round over a little bit. That'll do. Okay, so we've got to go straight to, yeah, we'll do 70 first. So starting position for a conventional deadlift is largely individual, depending on your own leverages. So Emily's quite similar to me, so we'll just show you how I do it first, I suppose. So you'll hear often that you should start with the bar touching your shins and a vertical shin. So we don't do that. We've got the bar sort of over where the toes start to meet the rest of the foot. So then she'll grab the bar and bring the knees and hips forwards over the bar then and pull from there. Good. Okay. Now just do another one just reset again. Walk forwards so your shins touch the bar and just try it from there. So she's a lot more rounded over at the bottom. She can't drop her hips as far, can't get as much leg involvement. So just go back again to the other one. So if you do it this way, you get to actually squat down to the bar a bit, pull your chest up, and I just think it looks a lot better. That tends to suit more people than having it in touching your shins does, from what I've seen anyway. So is that different from how everyone else pulls? Or?
Step back and
Yeah, it's just a couple of inches back, and then you actually got some space to squat down to the bar then. So I mean, I'm not going to lift it, but if I was stood here touching it, I can't get down to the bar without being quite rounded over. You know, if I actually tried to keep a flat back and go down to the bar, I'm just going to fall backwards there. So it just clearly doesn't work. So yeah, just do a quick set of 3 with that. Okay, so just stay there at the moment. Now, what I like to do here is actually use the bar to pull yourself down into position. So raise your hips up first, and now use the bar to pull yourself down, and then pull from there. You'll find that actually engages all your upper back then, which should keep your back a bit flatter through the pull. That's good. Just do one more. Good. Just let Emily get on with it now, I think. Just stick 100 on.
What would you say is the advantage of doing sumo over a convention, would you say, or is it purely body type?
I honestly believe for most people, conventional is better. People tend to go to sumo when they can't quite figure out how they should do a conventional properly. And instead of exploring a lot of these options, they'll just default to sumo. Like, especially if if you really believe you need to have a vertical shin and the bar touching, if you can't do that conventional, people often just do it sumo because you can then. I don't really think it's always the best way to pull, but you should experiment and try both, definitely. So Emily did sumo up until, what, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And then we switched to conventional, and she got a 5.5 kilo PB in like 4 weeks' time. So it's, yeah, that's typical of what I see when I get a sumo lifter and we switch to conventional. So
Have you ever done sumo?
yeah, I've been up to 320 sumo. I've tried it twice now, and I get to the point where I'm about 4 weeks out from comp. I'm like, this isn't quite heavy enough for me to be certain of it yet. It might get better, but the safe bet is to just go back to conventional now because I've got a comp coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd need a good off season to really explore that. Okay, shall I do a rep? Yeah. So give yourself a bit of space, squat down to the bar, and then use the bar to pull yourself into position. Good. Okay, so have 120. Very nice. Straight to 140. That's a lot better than Friday, was it? Yeah. 150.
Do you still do the dedicated?
None at all. No.
What did you used to do?
There's a few things I like to do. My favourite one is to do a double overhand shrug, and I'll just do 5 reps at quite a gentle pace. I think it's better than a static hold because you're getting used to holding something that's in motion. So it's quite different from holding something that's stationary because it's trying to pull itself out of your hand all the time then. And I always found whatever I could do double overhand, I could double it with an alternate grip. So yeah. Aside from that, that's probably the main benefit of the really high block pulls, is you can overload it with a weight that you can grip just enough to do that very short rep, and that seems to bring my grip on a lot as well. But long holds with less weight never really did anything for me.
What kind of frequency do you get people to do deadlifts?
3 or 4 times a week, yeah. If it's appropriate for them, that'll be the most we go up to though.
Sounds enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not come across anyone who needs more than that.
So is that variations?
Yeah, almost always, yeah. So we'll do stiff legs, I like them a lot. Deficits, regular deadlifts, pause deadlifts, I found a lot of use from them recently. They really helped me in maintaining my position off the floor. Because what I would do was I would stand on a slight deficit and then I'd just pull it an inch off the floor so I'm pausing at where the regular deadlift height would be. And I found that really strengthened my start position then. So yeah, it's just at the end of every training cycle, just reassess where your weaknesses are and then spend the next 4 weeks working on them. And just keep cycling through until you find new weaknesses.
Right. And what sort of weights for deficit?
I went up to 400 before my last comp on a deficit. That was, it's probably not the best way to actually correct your deadlift. It just lets you get away with doing it badly if it does go wrong. I find it offers a bit of a safety buffer for my back as well, because I will let my back round a bit more on the stiff leg deadlifts. I find people who get back injuries from rounding are the people who have always trained with the back in a perfect position only. Then maybe you go for a PB attempt and you can't hold that perfect position. So suddenly you've got a weight you've never lifted before and you're in a position you've never been in before. That's when you'll get a back injury usually. So prepare for a bit in training, yeah. Do a bit of work with a bit of a rounded back. But be careful and progress it slowly from a light enough weight that's not going to hurt you. You ready? Good. I think we'll do 155 today. I think that'll be enough. Yeah. So how much did you put on your conventional deadlift in the last 4 weeks?
14.5 kilos.
Yeah.
So up from 20.
Yeah. And actually surpassed all her rep PBs and sumo that she'd been spending like a couple of years doing. About 4 weeks she surpassed them all with conventional, so it's easier to like it, isn't it, when that happens?
Yes.
So I was sort of expecting like a 6-month-long project, to be honest, of where we might just about get close to her best comp numbers this time around, and then, yeah, that's clearly the way forward. But it's always going to be individual, and you just have to try new things.
Do you or have you ever done much like bent over rows and pull-ups and all that?
No. No, all my back development has come just from deadlift variations. And there's a lot of arguments to be made for lat strength and improving your lockout and things like that. Or I just think using the appropriate weight on deadlifts is going to give you a more direct transfer. So if you're struggling to hold your back straight on a deadlift, I wouldn't correct it by doing a load of rows and pull downs. I'd pick a lighter weight and deadlift it properly. But you do hear a lot that you should do things like good mornings and work on your posterior chain to help stop you from folding over in the squat or the deadlift. But it just never really works out that way. It might be more applicable in equips lifting, I don't know. Good. All right, that's as heavy as you're going today. Okay.
New hands.
I'm looking for a deadlift assistant movement that'll help with the initial pull off the floor.
Yeah.
Just anything.
How do you feel you're struggling off the floor?
I feel like I didn't that much today, but I do when I'm at the gym. I don't know if that's just the bar or...
Do you feel like it's taking a long time for you to get it to break off the floor, or is it just not moving at all?
I feel like that's the only part that's like, I never fail the lift halfway up, or I never fail the lockout. I always fail the initial pull. I'll just pull the bar as much as I can. It won't go anywhere, and I'll have to leave it.
There's two things I'd do for that. Is I'd work on a small deficit. And aside from that, I'd also work from blocks slightly higher from the floor that allow you to actually use more weight. Because if you get used to getting a higher weight moving, even though it's from an easier position, you will start to get the lighter weights moving quicker even from the floor. You'll be improving your rate of force development that way. So yeah, I guess you have this problem like maybe an inch off the floor or something as soon as it starts moving.
I'll just give the bar everything I've got. It won't budge anywhere, and by that point I'm just black up here and I'm like...
Right.
Yeah, just don't have the energy there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just not able to apply all your force quickly enough. So yeah, maybe best for you would be to work from some higher blocks and just get used to moving heavier weights and getting it breaking off the floor. Okay.
You mentioned pauses and... Oh, sorry.
Yes.
You mentioned pauses and high bar squats for accessories for the squat. Are there any others you'd recommend?
What to target which issue?
Just to lift more, or do you mean a specific part of it?
Yeah, is there something you feel you're struggling with?
In the past I've struggled with depth.
Yeah.
That may have been my knee.
Yeah, that looks really good today after changing your stance a little bit. Okay, in general, for a raw squat, people are going to struggle with, it's either going to be back strength, so keep an extension all the way through the movement, or quad strength, which allows you to keep your hips further under the bar. So usually if you don't have the quad strength, your hips are going to come out further. And at that point, you're going to be putting more demand on your spinal erectors to keep yourself upright there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, any quad dominant variation. So front squats are great. High bar squats, paw squats at the bottom, where you have to really, you're getting rid of that stretch reflex, and you're having to rely on your own power output to generate the power to stay in position then. So, yeah, anything that forces you to have to stay more upright as you're coming out of the bottom is a good variation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just with, you were saying there's only the real accessory moves that you use are just variations of.
The vast majority, yeah.
Would you, after doing all of your power sets, or like doing a variation of deadlift, would you then, if you have like, I see a lot of people, just from, because I'm not trained or anything as coaching, from people that follow like Instagram, stuff like that, who will go and do like their deadlift set, and then will go off and do like some row work or some back work as like an accessory to that. Now, would you do the power sets and the variations of the deadlifts and the rows and everything, or would you just look to?
These other movements I tend to use more for addressing structural balance issues, particularly around the shoulder joints. So if I'm doing rows, it's to counter the amount of pressing I'm doing, so that I'm not too internally rotated. So I'm not particularly hammering these, trying to
Get really strong.
put yeah. So I'd do like maybe 3 sets of 10 with something I could do 14, 15 reps on. It's not supposed to be taxing, it's not supposed to detract from any of your main work.
It's just an accessory.
But yeah, we're just trying to address structural balance issues there, really, yeah. But yeah, seriously, do all your main power stuff first, and then if you've got time at the end, throw that in. Go on.
I'm looking for something that'll help with my hamstring for me, like flexibility.
For hamstrings, I would do a lot of stiff leg deadlift. So like we warmed up with, yeah. So the problem with flexibility is it's not enough just to generate the extra range of motion. You actually have to become strong at that extra range as well, otherwise it will just disappear again. So if you can find an exercise that stretches the muscle at the same time as strengthening it at the extra range of motion, that's going to give you the most benefit.
Would you think it would be advantageous to switch out maybe block pulls for the pull off the floor 1 week and then move into stiff leg for the next week?
I mean, when I'm doing it, I'm usually going to do all 3 during the week, so I'll give each one a separate day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom, you mentioned before about putting in sort of like training with a sort of a curved back and what have you.
Yeah.
How curved would you go, sort of thing? Because I'm always a little bit sort of Nazi with myself to always keep a straight back.
Right,
and
that's
everything.
going to depend on how much weight you're using. But if you were to start on something like the hyperextension machine,
Yeah.
on that with no weight at all, I'd go completely full range of motion on every joint on your back on that.
Okay.
Just get all the joints used to moving over their full range of motion, because they're so used to just working statically that they often don't actually have any strength over the full range of motion, especially at the end ranges. If I was doing it with deadlifts, I usually do it with the stiff leg deadlift, which kind of forces a little bit of curve into it anyway, because you can't really get all the way down unless you do.
Yeah, yeah.
So as long as it's not going beyond, what you have to do to actually get into the position, that's usually fine. But start with a lightweight, strengthen it first, and then slowly build it up. Yeah.
So for deadlifts, for instance, because I have the same trouble of getting it off the floor in the first place.
Yeah.
So I would do like block one day, then deficit another day, and then straight leg, possibly with a bit of a curve sort of thing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And you should make sure the curve really is just coming from, your middle back upwards.
yeah.
If you can try and keep your lower back braced all the time, that's
Yeah.
for the best. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Because of all the obviously with posterior chain stuff you do with heavy squats and deadlifts,
Uh-huh.
do you do any like ab work to sort of counteract that at all?
No.
Okay.
No. I do beltless variations of the lifts, which seems to take care of that.
And then just stretching, I guess.
Yeah. But, squat variations like high bar and front squat really hammer the abs as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and I don't really look at body parts to train. I try and train movement patterns. If I can find something that's as specific as possible to improve a weakness, then I'd go with that rather than doing some specific ab work.
Yeah.
Because you're using them every time you do a lift properly anyway.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it shouldn't be lagging.
I have been told that when I do bench, that sometimes my right hand, because I'm right-handed, will shoot up before the left, so I'm slightly uneven. So what I have tried to do is where I lie on the floor, lift my hips up and have dumbbells. Is that sort of a good method to try and sort of strengthen the weaker arm, or just keep on with the bench?
It depends whether it is a weakness or whether it's a tightness that's causing that to happen.
Or the what?
Or
Tightness?
it could be a tightness on one side that's causing that to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What's
I don't know.
what's your
actually.
shoulder mobility like?
Good, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Emily, test her external rotation on each
Oh,
side.
wow. Thank God, and here we go.
Just do both and let's just see one's. Okay, check the other side. Does one feel that? Yeah, right, that'll be it.
Yeah, all right. So, so I just need to do what with this arm then?
You need
Is
to.
it the elastic work?
No, this one's going to be more of a stretching. It probably maybe a sports therapy issue as well.
Oh, right.
I could demonstrate. Does anyone have really tight rotators? Right.
Yeah, everybody's hands.
Does anyone want to be a guinea pig?
I don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Is this going to hurt?
Yes. Okay, which side's worse than the other?
Definitely.
Emily, just go and just chest this rotation. Right, now if you come over to this wall here, put your arm up about 45 degrees, straighten your arm, straighten it so that, come away from the wall a bit so that hand's a bit lower. You want this to be about 45 degrees. Put your palm on the wall, now turn away to face that way. So you'll notice that your internal rotators, which is your pecs, are really tight. So
This is already sore, so
right,
you're going to cry.
how does that feel?
It's not bad. Oh, that is.
Yeah.
Oh, that. Oh my God.
Right. So I'll just do like 20 seconds. Just keep turning further that way if you can.
Oh my God.
Right. Okay. So I'll just get Emily to do it again so it's a fair test. Just test his external rotation again. Yeah, there you go.
Don't know whether I want to say thanks.
So basically though, that's just fascial release.
Yeah.
It's better than stretching, to be honest.
Yeah. We always need someone else to do that.
No, I can do it for myself, but
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
you have to know what you're doing a
Yeah.
bit, really.
What's
Yeah.
that
Well, this is a
maneuver
physio,
you
so-
use?
This.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's just a piece of jade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curious, are you?
Where'd you get one from?
Amazon. It's called a
What'd you search under?
it's
Pain.
called it's called a Graston tool.
Graston.
Yeah, you might have
Okay.
heard of this. It's a sports therapy thing.
Right. I think I'll get somebody else to do it, because
Yeah.
it's probably I'll pussy out
They're all
myself.
Right.
There's loads of self-massage gadgets you can get.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
balls on the end of it and stuff like that. Use them for sports massage.
So basically, you over time you'll develop adhesions between the muscle and the fascia, which stops the muscle from sliding properly, which will it really limits your range of motion.
Yeah.
And you can break down those adhesions with this, and then it's like 20 seconds later you've got
Yeah,
a lot more range of motion.
Just a question on diet. What's your sort of typical diet?
Eat as much as I can all day long. I mean, I'd be under 80 kilos if I didn't, so it's hard work.
But is it just a sort of standard high protein and whatever from carbs and fat?
Like high carbs and whatever protein manages to get in there with. Yeah, you eat enough of something, you'll get enough protein. Probably, yeah. But yeah, carbs is the main one for me. Yeah, I just shrink and lose strength without them.
Do you stay around the same size until the comp's coming up and then you'll cut down for the comp?
I did when I was in the 100s. Now I'm in the 110s. I just lift at what I sit
So
at.
you like
also,
naturally
yeah.
sit at that kind of...
I mean, before my last comp, I think I was about 112 the night before the comp. So it's a quick cut in the sauna. And then
You thinking about conquering the supers one day?
no. I could see myself maybe getting up to about 120. I'm not comfortable at 110 though, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, life gets harder, doesn't it? Yeah. I used to be able to tie my shoelaces. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, do you have any recommendations for older lifters? Because everything I read says you should take it easy, and I don't do anything with that.
How old are you?
57.
I think the oldest lifter I coach is probably 49,
Yeah.
and at that age she's not really doing an awful lot different than most, but it's just going to be a case of listening to your body. I'd start off aiming for optimum what you'd like to do, and then adjust downwards if need be. Because don't go in with a defeatist attitude that you can't train the way the younger people train. I'd at least give it a go and then adjust as need be.
Okay.
Yeah. Might surprise yourself.
On my bench day, I often work out whatever percentage I'm working at that day, and then I'll do an assistant movement. So I'll do either block press, I think it's called block press, when you've got like a or I do like from the pins.
Yeah.
But then I'd also do an incline dumbbell press.
Okay.
Do you think that's too much for one day, or
How often are you benching in the week?
just once a week?
That's fine.
Okay. Would you recommend either doing bench twice a week and eliminating the incline?
Yeah. Or even 3 times, yeah.
So maybe do like...
But if you're increasing frequency, what I would advise you do is keep the volume the same, maybe a little bit more, but spread it out over 3 sessions.
Okay, because I've been wanting to double my volume, but I'm not too sure how to go about it. I'd like to go in 6 days a week,
Right.
but I didn't know if that was going to be too much or if I would have to...
If you were doing all those movements each session, that would be too much.
Yeah. So do you think it would be better to eliminate the movements for the sake of getting stronger in the 3 mains, if that was what I was more motivated to do?
How new to lifting are you?
Well, I've only been doing this for about 24 weeks.
Right.
Honestly.
You probably don't need to be doing any assistance work at all at this point. Just get really good at the movements. Yeah.
Okay, so just more mains.
Yeah. And when you do start to start having to think about why you're stalling, what point in the lift you're failing, and then reevaluate what you need to do to improve that particular area.
I feel like
But at the moment, you'll just get stronger just from doing the lifts. Don't make it more complicated.
Yeah, I feel like that's the process that I'm going through at the moment, where I'm feeling like I have to optimise it.
Right.
Or I feel like, as you said, it's just about spending more time on the lift.
Yeah.
Because of money.
Yeah, I'd look at increasing your frequency first before anything else then.
Spot on. I think I've got one more question then. Would you recommend any type of supplement?
A multivitamin and fish oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm already doing right
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spot on.
How many comps do you reckon I should be doing a year?
I don't like doing more than 3 a year.
Oh, okay. I've already done like 3 or 4.
Yeah, you've backed yourself into a corner though, really.
I think that changes as you...
I think as you get stronger, you'll do less and less. Yeah. When you're first starting out, you really do just want to enter every comp that comes your way. But you find that you just find yourself trying to peak for comps all the time instead of actually training. So space them out a bit and do some training.
But I think it's worth going if you've got a bit of sort of stage fright though.
Yes, absolutely.
So not to have an
Yeah.
expectation of I'm going to get a PB
Now,
in this one.
What I would do with
Yeah.
my lifters is I would enter them into comps frequently, but I wouldn't treat them like a competition. I wouldn't be peaking them for the comp. I'd just say, just go in and do the training numbers we had that day, but do it on the platform and in front of 3 referees and a crowd.
Yeah.
Just don't be trying to perform too often in the year.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Tom before we finish up today? Okay, in that case, can we get a round of applause?